Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
Another episode of Trash Talk. I'm TJ O'Connor. With me, as always, Damian the Wolverine Hill. Trash Talk is being joined tonight by the baby rhino, James Clark. Trash Talk is first brought to you by our sponsors, Valhalla Combat Sports Incorporated, Ink Drinks Tattoo, Origin Wellness CBD, Spartan Martial Arts, The Striking Institute, James Clark, Sports Psychology and Hypnosis Therapy, The Fighters, and my mom. James, how you doing today, sir?
Good. Yourselves?
Doing good. Little disappointed that when I have to write out the title and the description for this video, just because Platonic Metaphysics is something that's pretty hard to spell. and to the people that don't actually know about it, it's one of those things that Jim has studied in for a long time. It is one of those things that we've talked in previous interviews, how it's attributed to you getting to the right and proper mindset when it came to breaking your world records. And most of your world records are all endurance based, and somewhat like your son too, because he just broke a world record for the most sit-ups done in 5 minutes, which was 369 push-ups or sit-ups last time, right? Was the previous record?
It was 269 by a Russian fellow, a guy from Georgia, but one of the Soviet countries there, former Soviet Union countries. He did 269, and then Joshua did 305.
Okay, so Josh was pretty much able to break the world record and get a big stretch out in front of it for the next guy that tries to break it. And one of the things that we were talking about with your world record was the Platonic Metaphysics, the self-hypnosis, the self-belief. And to the people that don't actually know all about that, could you explain a little bit in a more educated manner than I just did?
Sure. Yeah, when I got my PhD in is Platonic Metaphysics. So people that have seen that on a title somewhere, they think that I studied physics or something with science or math. Metaphysics is what it means basically is what's beyond the physical world. So putting it in simpler terms, it's basically Plato's theories of what he considered what was real and unreal, or what Plato's philosophical theories.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of my questions are going to sound redundant and repetitive just because we've talked. I've known you over 10 years, and I mean, we've talked about this plenty of times because it's always something that's really intrigued me. Now, I'm going to be asking questions as if it's the first time that I'm hearing about it, or try to ask questions as if it's the first time I'm hearing about it for the people that are listening. But the way that we were always able to compare, the way that you've been able to get me to make a mental connection between the two, between Platonic metaphysics, reality, and a movie called The Matrix. and that's always been, I felt the best way to explain it anytime that I've tried to explain it to anybody else, about how in the movie The Matrix, I mean, for the people that didn't happen to see it, warning, spoiler alert.
Fuck, that's 20 years old. No spoiler alerts.
No, it spoiler alert, dude. There's people that haven't seen it yet, man. No,
fuck
but anyway, but anyway, Morpheus is telling Neo when he's taken out of the real world, out of the simulation the first time, and is revealed that this world isn't real, that this world is a simulation itself, that this world has certain laws, and those laws can be bended just like I don't know, just like stuff that can be bended. So they can be bended and manipulated, and you're able to do more than what you actually believe that you can. So if you believe that you can barely walk, well, then you can barely walk. If you believe that you can run as fast as Usain Bolt, then you can run as fast as Usain Bolt. And that's basically what Morpheus was able to get Neo to tap into. And I've always felt like that was the best comparison. How would you best explain it, or try to get the people listening to understand?
Right. So So that movie was that was what I could use to try to get people to to understand what I was talking about. I'm pretty sure that whoever wrote that script or whatever had some like background in Plato's theories, because they were using them. But basically, what Plato believed, that the physical world wasn't real, like he called it the corporeal world, the world of the body, that he believed wasn't real. And he theorized it this way, that you can tell that it's not real because it's always in flux, it's always changing. So like people are young and then they become older and they physically change. You buy a car brand new, like 5 years later it starts to wear down, you need to repair it, and then you need to junk it. So things are always in flux, things are always changing. And so Plato believed that the fact that the physical world is always changing, it's always in flux, it's never the same, it's never constant, that it wasn't real. So he believed what was real would be the world that doesn't change, that doesn't that always remains constant. So he believed that this world wasn't real, but it had a real world that animated it or was a reflection. So he believed that like this world was like a shadow world, but there was a real world that made a reflection so that we could see it here. And so some of the classes that I took in this are kind of complex. I remember looking around my, like fellow students when we were taking it. For me, it made sense. Like some other people really had a hard time getting their mind around it. But to put it in simpler terms, there's the world that Plato believed was real was like the soul, like the soul of somebody. The body is not real. It succumbs to fatigue, sickness, and old age, and then it turns to dust like it was never there. But what is real of the person is their soul that animates that body. That soul is eternal, according to Plato. That's what was real for him. And then the world, like the universe, like the planets, that's physical. But there was like an energy. He called it the first principle. What moved the planets and moved everything around, like the universe. That's what was real. And then he believed that our soul was a part of that first principle, or part of that universe. And then he wrote this in like Plato's book of, he called it the Symposium, or the Symposium on Love. He said that our soul came from this first principle. This first principle dispersed itself to become corporeal world, but that spark of that first principle is in all of us, and it's trying to get back to its source, trying to go back to the first principle. So what was real about us, was real about anything, is the spirit behind it, or the soul of it, like the soul of the universe, or the soul of each particular life form. That's what was real. And what is false, or what is like a shadow, is the physical world.
Okay, so I guess this leads me in to start thinking about simulation theory and like religion a little bit too, just because everyone believes that once we die, we go to a heaven or a hell, or there's an afterlife. And one of those things that is kind of similar between what you're saying, in between life and death in the religious sense and life and death in the simulation sense. When we perish in this world, when we travel onto the real world, is that us being released out of the simulation, or is that us going on to the other, the spirit world? I don't know. I kind of thought about this a lot of times, and I've never been able to get like too in depth with it, because I always start to scare myself. But but it's one of those things that it's like it's hard not to want to believe, because I mean, one, the religious aspect, and then the fact is that we all do perish from this world, and to know that there's something else out there, and to know that we can do more in this world than we actually can is one of the things that actually attracted me to being at the gym and training under you for so long too, is a lot of the things that a lot of the guys were able to accomplish, and a lot of the things that you were able to get a lot of the people to accomplish because of the fact that they were able to believe in themselves, not necessarily that they had the best attributes. Now, when you were going for your world records, is that one of the things that you thought about yourself, where not necessarily you didn't possess the work ethic or the dedication, but maybe without your mindset and believing that, hey, this world isn't real, do you think that you would have had more limitations upon yourself, which would have kept you from getting to your world records?
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to break the world records if it wasn't for this philosophy. This is what, like, for example, it's like some of the world records that I've done, and people can look them up. They can type in, like, in Google or Yahoo, and like James Clark World Records, and so they can see some of them. And I'm in different books. Like, I was in the Guinness Book of World Records. I've been in Record Holders Republic. I've been in Dale Harder Strength and Fitness World Records. So they can look them up. But one of the records I did was I did 44,001 sit-ups in 24 hours. I did 33,001 push-ups in 24 hours. And then I did 2,001 parallel bar dips. Those are those, like, gymnastics routines. I did 2,001 of those in an hour. I swam across a lake, big lake, actually, up kind of past Elk River, Big Lake. I swam across that with my hands handcuffed behind my back and my feet shackled together. I don't know. I think it's like 3 miles across that lake from what I was told. So I swam across that lake. I swam across a lake that had ice chunks in it and, like, was freezing. So these are the kind of things that were, if I were to, I know this is going to sound crazy, but, like, you and I talked off the air, Damien, like, I've been doing these world records since 1987. And I've been on TV for them. I've been on, like, the David Letterman show. I've been on all the, like, national networks. Whenever I've talked about the Platonic Metaphysics, they've always canceled my interviews. They've never aired. They ever aired it, because to some people it's going to sound crazy, and I might sound crazy saying it, but if you're trying to do 44,000 sit-ups, if you were to live in your body, if you were to think that you were your body, you'd never get there. You would succumb to the pain of it, the fatigue. You would succumb to it, and then people that believe that they're their own body, they have, like, a built-in, Darwin wrote about this, a built-in instinct for self-preservation. So they would think, oh, I'm being hurt by this, so I should stop. Otherwise, so through the Platonic Metaphysics, through, like, meditation, using his theories, also through, like, hypnosis, I've studied things from the psychological aspect. Those tools helped me get past, so I could go beyond the physical world, so to speak, and go past fatigue or go past pain. Wouldn't say ignore it, but rise above it. For example, like, especially doing sit-ups, I chose doing the sit-up records a lot because that exercise, for most people, the lactic acid buildup would make it just the pain unbearable. And so when you're doing the 44,001 sit-ups, and you guys look at me, do I look like I can do even 5 sit-ups? Look at that guy standing behind you there, Damien, you're Homer Simpson there. Do I look like I could do 44,000 sit-ups? So it has to be a mental effort or even a spiritual one to get through it,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing that every barroom fight expert, I mean, one of the key phrases they'll throw out to seem like they know something is, fatigue makes cowards of us all.
Sure.
So, like, when I'm hearing you talk, that's what's popping into my head is you're saying, with these teachings, you're able to concentrate and go past that. And obviously, like you said, do 44,001 sit-ups in 24 hours, which, I mean, sounds just insane. I mean, to even for the average person to do that. But I think, like I said, that's where the word average comes in, because to even think about doing that, I mean, you're already in a different philosophy, different mindset to say, you know what, I can do 44,000 sit-ups in 24 hours.
Yeah, if you just like look at anything that somebody wants to do, whether that's, you know, athletics or like, you know, getting through school, if you look at the big picture of it, you'll fail if you look at the whole thing. But if you, you know, break it down, like, you know, I didn't think of like the whole 24 hours when I started. I think, okay, this hour I need to do, you know, I actually had the math down in my head. I think I needed to do 1,835 each hour. So I said, okay, I need 1835 this hour. And then when that hour was done, okay, I need 1835 this hour. So I kind of broke it down in my mind, like in stages mentally. So I didn't look at the big picture. Also, like getting through school, like some people think it takes an intelligent person to get their bachelor's degree or their master's degree or their doctorate. I needed to get my doctorate in it so I could learn everything I could, because there are very few universities or colleges that study Platonic metaphysics. So I had to jump around, but in order to get through 8 years of school, I had to break it down like that. Okay, I just need to get this paper done. I need to get this thesis done. I need to read this book, and then when that was done, I go on to the next. And if there's one virtue in order to get through school, you know, people think it's intelligence. The one virtue to get through your studies is perseverance. If you do your work, you turn everything in, you show up, you're going to win. We're going to give you your degree if you keep chugging away. So just think how many things someone can accomplish if they simply didn't quit.
Yeah.
Most people don't fail; they quit.
Yeah. So what actually got you interested in Platonic metaphysics in the first place?
It was actually sort of an accident. I'm kind of half embarrassed to tell you about it, but it's the truth. Like when I was in high school, I was just there to wrestle. That was an opportunity for me to wrestle. I did not like my studies. I think after wrestling was over, like I didn't drink during the wrestling season, but after the wrestling season was over, I was going to parties, and I think at any given time my blood alcohol level was higher than my GPA.
Yeah.
In my senior year, I was going to parties, and so I wasn't a very good student, and so I went. Just cut a long story short, I was in the service, and when I was in the service, I had gotten into a fight. I was on a ship, and some guys were strong arming the group that I was in. They were trying to like hit us up for money, trying to like mug us in a sense.
Yeah.
So I was on a ship, and then we didn't bow down to them, so we fought them. So anyway, long story short, I was caught in a fist fight on the ship, and I was restricted to my quarters. I was restricted to my room for 3 days. There was shore patrol. I was in the Navy, so there was shore patrol that was sitting outside my door. So while I was there was nothing to do in there. They brought my meals to me, and the only thing that I had to read in there was some books on Plato, and so I just started reading them, and I just understood it. Like I said, like I've been in studies where people have a hard time getting their mind around Plato's theories. But when I was reading, I just understood it, and it fascinated me. And so when I got out of the service, there's always something that was in my mind. Like it always just fascinated me, his theories and what he was talking about. And so I started reading his dialogues, and then I was thinking, where can I study more of this, or where can I? So I went to St. Thomas, which is a Catholic, it's a private, private university, but they have like classes in like classical theology, classical philosophy, like the Greeks. So I went there, then I went on to St. John's and I got a master's there, and then I went on to St. Alcuin's, which is a sister school of Trinity College in Dublin. Because you guys know that I'm an Irish citizen, so
Yep.
I studied at St. Alcuin's, which has a relationship with Trinity College. So that's where I studied. So I just went and studied everything I could about it. I read all of Plato's dialogues and then took classes in it and had like a mentor where someone that was teaching me, some of these things. But I extrapolated his theories to how it pertained to my life. And so I was always interested in, like I said, the wrestling, but also at doing athletic things like lifting weights and doing exercises. And so I used Plato's theories in order to help me become a better athlete or become like a better at doing weightlifting or better at doing like these exercises. So if Plato's correct and that the physical world wasn't real, then the things that we feel or that we sense are basically mental constructs. They're mental concepts, right? So that the fact that we feel pain is not if the body isn't real, then it's not necessarily felt there, but it's felt in the mind. And so then the mind can shut that off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the mind can rise above it, or the spirit can rise above what's happening to the body. And so basically, like I said, it's going to sound kind of goofy to your listeners maybe, but I'd put myself almost in a trance where I was kind of looking outside of myself, and then like my body was doing the sit-ups, but I really wasn't there,
Yeah. Well, for all that lactic acid and muscles ripping, that's what it is every time you do a sit-up. And yeah, I wouldn't want to be there for that either. No.
Like there was another one where like I went on opening fishing on Mille Lake, and we went on the other side of it. I went with some buddies of mine from my high school wrestling team, and we went on the other side. They had this pontoon, this huge pontoon that they went on the other side of Mille Lacs. I think where we were about 3 miles maybe outside the cabin. It was opening fishing. There were still ice chunks in the water, and their battery went out. It was just these other guys on my wrestling team. Their battery died in this pontoon, and they didn't have a spare battery. So there was nobody around us, and so they were like panicking because what are we going to do? And I said, I'll swim us back. And they were like looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I go, tie the rope on me, I will swim us back. And they go, you'll die in there. You'll freeze to death. And then I know this is going to sound like goofy, but if, like I said, if the body isn't real, if Plato's real about, if Plato's correct about the body isn't real, then the physical world can be manipulated by what a person believes. And
Yeah.
so and then Plato believed that the soul is a part of this bigger universe, right? So the first principle dispersed itself, and every one of us, every being has a little piece of that Godhead in us, that first principle. So if a person meditated, they can connect themselves to that higher force, become better than they were, greater than they would have been.
Yeah.
Also manipulate the physical world in a sense. And so here's what I did. I imagined that I had like a barrier between me and the water, like that I could generate heat from my spirit in order to protect my body. And essentially that happened. So when I got out of the water, here's what happened. So I swam like 2.5 miles in when somebody finally saw us. Like, here's what happened. The other two guys, and I don't blame them, they didn't want to get in the water because they thought they would get hypothermia or they freeze to death, whatever. Somebody came at us, or somebody came towards us with a boat. Hey, I can tow you in. But I said that no, I'm only half a mile away from there. I wanted to finish what I started. And so the two guys were kind of pissed off at me. They wanted to get inside because they were cold just sitting there. And then I go, no, I go, well, you guys didn't jump in the water. I did. And so I'm finishing what I started. So I told the other guys, thanks. Everybody thought I was crazy, every single one of them. But I got the pontoon in, they tied it up. I got out the only noticeable physical thing that I had, like my balls were like raisins. You know,
Okay. Okay, so what was going through those guys' minds is that you're crazy, and I'm gonna go ahead and second that. Uh, but it's crazy in a sense of self-belief. That's a crazy amount of self-belief to have, and to have it that young too, then to find out later on, like all the things that you've done led into just, it's no surprise. Oh my God, that's crazy. I mean, and you hear stories of self-belief, or the power of self-belief in different survival stories, different. I'm trying to like have one come to my mind, but like there was one where this guy was like stranded with a broken leg, and he was would like make himself vomit, and then it would attract certain animals and stuff, and he'd use tools that he had to like kill the animal, heal himself up, and ended up walking like 10 miles or whatever, right before he was finally like rescued and everything. But his leg was still broken when he was walking on it. He thought it, and like because he believed his leg was healed, he didn't feel any pain when he was walking.
yeah.
Man, the power of that is strong.
Yeah, there's this other record that I broke. I did this one in 2006. It was a guy named Futi, I can't remember, Nashad Mayan or something. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his name, but he was from India. He was like an Indian Swami, like Hindu Swami, where and he had a world record. He did 1,400 and some sit-ups in an hour, but I broke that record in 2006. So I did 2001 sit-ups in an hour. But you guys know, like if we have a fight coming up where one of our guys are fighting, I'll study film on a guy and try to figure out, what they're about and what the best way to maybe beat them. So I was studying this guy, and so I was reading his things, but he was saying very similar things, but like Plato's theories is kind of a Western philosophy, but like the Hinduism more of a kind of Eastern way, but very similar. He was talking about with his religious beliefs or his spiritual beliefs, he could rise above, and so I was studying him, but he's very, very similar how he was able to set the world record. Originally, he did it with a similar mindset. But like, yeah, the Swamis from India, they've been reading about them. They've also been able to do some pretty amazing things through a connection to the spirit and kind of overcoming the limitations of the body.
Man, this is crazy. This is one of those things where I feel like we're gonna have to talk about again. And for the people that want to know more about it and get more in depth, James Clark's is right here. You can reach out to him on Facebook. He also runs James Clark Sports Psychology and Hypnosis Therapy, for those that don't know. I mean, and this is one of those things that not necessarily he'll get you to necessarily believe. You'll believe whatever you want, but it's one of those things that if you do believe, you literally fucking achieve. Did you not hear a story about swimming in the lake? but to the people listening, like this video, subscribe to Trash Talk with Damien and TJ. Follow James Clark on Facebook, and I don't think you have any social media. So reach out to him on Facebook, get a hold of him, and yeah, don't be a hoe.